Hey guys, welcome to the Business and Bootstrapping Podcast, where we believe in busting your ass and bootstrapping your startup to build the business and life of your dreams. I'm your host, Matt Ward, and if you enjoyed the show today, please check us out at businessandbootstrapping.com to get more great tips, tricks, and interviews with successful entrepreneurs. Thanks, and let's get started.
Hey.
Hey, Andrew, how you doing?
Doing great.
That's good.
Sorry, it took me a moment. I went to refill the carafe.
Oh, don't worry about it. So how are you doing today? Doing good?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty swell.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring you on here to basically get some of your experience with building businesses, building Mixergy, and just learn a little bit more about you.
Okay. Proud to be on here.
If there's nothing else that you need to say, you want to get started?
Do you want to just talk about what the first question is so that we know, so that I want to give your audience a really good intro or a really good start so that they feel that they want to watch the rest of the interview.
Yeah, we got to pull them in and let them kind of see your story.
Yes,
so that
I want to make sure
credibility. When I was mentioning you in the podcast, I was going to say something along the lines of, you're a .com millionaire that currently has interviewed the likes of Tim Ferriss and other... Okay, yep. I'm kind of winging it. And then I was also going to put the marathoning in there as well, kind of to get a little bit more about you. Do you have any suggestions on how best to do that? I know you've got a lot of experience.
What's the first question that you would ask then with that?
The first question I wanted to get into was kind of a little bit more around your life story. So I was going to start with how you've always been entrepreneurial minded. Even growing up, you were selling candy and teachers yelling at you, and how that kind of led into your growth as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Do you think it's better off starting with some of your successful internet businesses to pull people in?
I'm thinking of maybe something that sounds a little more shocking so that people feel like they're going to hear something that they won't hear anywhere else. I just can't think of a shocking question.
What's something you've never told anyone else? That could be our first question.
No, I don't know about it. I don't know. When I lost my virginity, you want to talk about that and how that relates to business? Or is that too far off base for you?
We could do that. We could do that if you really wanted to.
No, I just am looking for something out there. But
how about this? We throw down the gauntlet, and I call you out and ask you how you think you stand up against Ira Glass in terms of podcasting and interviews.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sure. Whatever. Sure. If that works for you. I just want to make sure that the first one comes out of the gate ready to punch people in the face so that they have to pay attention.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. All right. But
if we need to cut this,
don't sweat it too much. Ira Glass never hits people in the face.
Hey guys, welcome to the Business and Bootstrapping Podcast. In today's episode, I'm super excited and pretty terrified to talk with Andrew Warner, the highly successful founder over at Mixergy.com, where he interviews, let's be honest, some of the most successful and powerful entrepreneurs in the world. In addition to his...
Am I still making you nervous? Did I make you nervous by hitting you before the interview started with what's the first question going to be? How do we make this exciting for people? Did that add to it? It did, right?
I'm a little better now. My stomach feels better, but it's still like I've been listening to your show. I love the show.
Well, thanks. All right. I've got to learn to let people do their introductions instead of jumping in. All right. What were you going to say?
Don't worry. The intros. Do you have trouble with the intro? I always
write down the intro. I try to keep it as short as possible because I end up rambling if I allow myself to.
Yeah, you either improvise and ramble or you just get super nervous and screw up.
Yes, it's really tough. And frankly, I don't think anyone really cares about the intro. When I listen to podcasts, I sometimes will fast forward through the intro. If I'm listening, it means I like the person, one of the two people at least. It means I like the interviewer or it means I like the guest. But if they start to set me up, it's like a joke that has more setup than punchline, and I feel like I just have to check out. But it doesn't matter. You wanted to say what? You wanted to...
I actually like that. So, hey guys, today I'm here with Andrew Warner.
No, you got to keep that intro in there.
Okay, we're going to keep that in there. Okay.
I think so. Are you okay with letting people see this and talk about our nervousness?
Exactly. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. I can do that.
All right.
I got to cut this part out.
Okay, all right. You want to just start over? We can start over.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you.
We can do that. I'll find a good way to put that in there on the terrified part. Maybe have some outtakes.
Here, I'll call you right back just so we both start fresh. Do you want to get the phone?
It's just one sec. I'm actually living at home, so this is a pain.
Okay, it happens.
One sec.
You know what, Matt? I suggest you keep that in there. Let people see it. This is humanity. Okay. This is real. This is what television tries to create, and they never get it right because it comes across as feeling wrong, because they never get the little touches like you having to start over and realizing that it doesn't make sense, like the phone from home ring. Let people see this is where we really are.
Okay, I like it.
Keep it in. Let's not edit any of it out. I would keep this whole thing in. We are fighting for a reason. We're fighting because you're still living at home and you've got to be pissed. Aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I am.
Right. And so a guy who goes home to a nice, beautiful apartment in Manhattan, and then he has a limousine drive him over to his offices in New Jersey so he can record an interview for CNBC, does not feel this kind of pressure, does not feel this kind of identity with his audience, does not feel this kind of need to make the interview go well. And that's why their interviews are also bland and meaningless, and they do nothing but shovel more stock horse crap at us. You, on the other hand, have the pressure that the audience is feeling, this need to do something with your life, this need to leave a mark, this need to get get out of your parents' house where they actually have one of those old-timey, what's it called? Call, not voicemail. What was it before?
Answering machine.
Answering machine. Yes, a machine for answering phone calls, right? That's got to create pressure.
I like it. How do you manage to keep your interviews real? Do you edit?
Inner pressure. I do not feel satisfied at all with where I am. I do not feel like I've done nearly as much as I'd like to, and I need to get somewhere. And the only way that I'm going to get somewhere is if I'm going to have a conversation with an entrepreneur who's going to teach me how to take one more step forward, who's going to give me one more insight, who, frankly, even if he teaches me jack, will at least bond with me in a way that I could then have a relationship with him or with someone in the audience that will take me a step further. But I cannot sit back and do one of these boring old interviews that you see on television where you know that that they both aren't happy doing it. I saw an interview with everyone loves David Letterman. The great David Letterman was interviewing, you know who? What is her name? The woman who was on drugs and drinking all the time.
You mean every Hollywood celebrity ever?
Say this. He was interviewing every Hollywood starlet, and then he calls up Oprah, and they pretend that it's some kind of phony phone call. But meanwhile, Oprah knows that it's a phony phone call that's coming in, and she acts like she was surprised. Oh, who is this? Oh, it's Dave. I can't believe it. Shocked me. And what? You have any Hollywood starlet on? This is so shocking, right? That's BS. He is not engaged, and he's not going to call it out and say, you're both boring me. You're not delivering something that's going to change my life. I, on the other hand, am much more determined. I am in a place where I need to do something big with my life. And the only way that I could get there is if I guide an interview in a direction that will be useful. That's why the audience needs to watch us and not watch those phony balonies who are on television.
Why do you feel that you're so motivated internally? What drives you with all the success that you've had, all the accolades? Everyone looks up to you. Why?
Same to me when I was listening to heavy metal as a kid and fantasizing about being up on stage. I would go watch Motley Crue, and all eyes were on Tommy Lee, who flipped upside down and in circles with his drums, and he was playing them and flipping and spinning, and everyone was watching him, and women were taking their tops off, and guys were taking their tops off. Like, it was going crazy for him, right? At the time, I was sitting there in the audience going, I would like to do that. I'd like to be the kind of musician who could create something different, both the music and also the showmanship of it. I'd like to do that. I'd like to have people appreciate my work instead of, crapping on it the way my teachers did. And so I would fantasize about being called by Tommy Lee to go up on stage and say, someone needs to do this. I don't know. I couldn't really play an instrument. Someone needs to play the triangle. You, sir, in the audience, please, we need you. So I would fantasize about that because I would watch them. And so now, as I grew up, I started watching and reading more about entrepreneurs and understanding what they were doing. And I felt the same way. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to play on their stage. I wanted to have the kind of impact that they did. And that's the reason. We want to become the people we admire and watch the most. And so people I admire and watch the most since I was a kid are entrepreneurs. And I want to become like them. I want to become like the people who built up this country and this planet. One more thing. If you're a New Yorker, you go into Grand Central Station or you drive past it because the traffic is funneled around it. And one thing you see as you drive up the street is a big statue of Cornelius Vanderbilt. This is the guy who built Grand Central Station, the railroads, who changed the way that this country worked. And he's still being revered. He still has his impact today. His work is being revered anyway. He's a guy who some people don't like. But his work is still there. It's still influencing people. Millions of people will come into contact with what he created. I don't want to be another one of these guys who drives up to him as I'm driving through Manhattan and worship him. I want to be the kind of person who says, I'm inspired by that. I should leave a similar legacy behind. And that's what it's about. And until I get to that, I won't be happy. Until I get to leave my mark like that and allow someone else to be inspired and moved by the work that I've done, not one person, lots, I can't stop.
Do you think that's motivated by a lack of confidence maybe when you were younger? Because from what I've heard and really from what you're saying, the world is never enough. James Bond, right? No matter how hard and how much you work, you're always going to want to do more. What do you think actually drove that when you were younger in terms of wanting to be that person in the spotlight?
Look, I've had sex for most of my life. I still want more. You can't say, what's wrong with you, Andrew, that you weren't satisfied that you had sex once. Come on, you need to do it again, It's good, right? I ran in this morning. You could say, Andrew, what's wrong with you that a marathon isn't enough? You have to do another marathon and another run into work. It's good. I love it. I want more of it. I want more of the things that are good for me and that I really enjoy. I'm not going to be one of these people who punishes himself for loving things. And part of the things that I love is I love business. Part of the things that I find meaning in is leaving a legacy of leaving behind something that other people could be influenced by. And that's important to me.
And I think Mixergy does a great job of really helping entrepreneurs to learn from that and to learn from your experience. What would you say, what if you lost Mixergy just overnight? Everything was gone. What would be your new role? I know you say you're completely motivated towards leaving a legacy. Well,
I keep interrupting. I shouldn't. I should allow you to ask a question, but I'm all charged up right now because I like the way this interview started. I like the reality of it. If I lost it all, I'll meet you right back here and do an even better interview a year from now. That's what I mean. That's what I believe. Because look at what goes into my interviews. Relationships. I'm not going to burn all my relationships overnight. The drive. I don't believe I'll lose my drive overnight. If the site goes down, if my customers leave, my audience disappear tomorrow, I will build it right back up. Either by going back to the same contacts that I had before and build it up with them, or frankly, I could start over again. But I believe that what my site is based on is a desire, curiosity, a realness that as long as I have that, I'll be okay.
What would you say is more valuable to you right now, the skills that you've learned and built as an entrepreneur and an interviewer, or the network that you have and the people and the connections?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't use my network and connections nearly well enough. I feel bad asking people for things with rare exceptions, and I should be asking for more help. I feel really bad when, frankly, even someone takes me out for a drink. I go, well, I should be paying for my own drink. I should maybe even pay for their drink. It's a bad thing. I don't use my network nearly enough.
With that, I know you've had over 1,000 interviews, so your network, it's pretty sizable. Congratulations on that, by the way. Your 1,000th interview where you were talking about interviewing Seth Godin as your hero, that's part of what motivated me to reach out to you and really try to talk and connect with you to get you on the show. So what would you say is the most important thing you've learned over the course of your interviews?
There's so many things. You mentioned Seth Godin. Seth Godin, when I asked him how he could keep cranking out those blog posts, and he's been writing for years, how he could crank out one, sometimes 2 blog posts a day and make them so good that people will share them. I said, how do you do it? And he said, Andrew, it helps that I speak in my own voice. And I know that could sound really simplistic, but if you've ever sat down to write a long email, if you've ever sat down to speak on camera, you know that it's hard. And it's not until you stop and you say, what am I trying to really say here? And say it in your own voice that you realize, oh, that's not so hard. It's easier. And so he taught me how to do that. He taught me how to sit here and really be myself in my interview with you, right? I could sit and try to give you a presentation of someone who's not me and it won't work. It'll be awkward for me. It'll be tough for me. I won't want to do it again. Or I could try to tap into more of who I am and speak like myself. The only time I've edited myself here in this conversation is I wasn't sure if I should be cursing here. I never know whether I should or not because, frankly, there are dummy restrictions on cursing. Content will not get you censored, but because we now have software that can detect cursing, I don't know if iTunes does it or not, but if you curse without tagging it as a curse, then you're in violation of Apple's trust, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, marking it as the clean content. I've been trying to figure out how to get all the podcast stuff set up. I'm certainly going to drop a couple here and there because that's who I am. It's kind of in my nature, so feel free.
And frankly, if you read, I like The New Yorker. If you read The New Yorker, they're a very highbrow magazine. They are very, they're intellectuals over there, and they curse sometimes, or they have curse words in there because that's how you capture a real person, not by sanitizing their words. Anyway, that's the only way I've censored myself or tried to not be myself in this conversation.
I like it. Just eliminate all of the BS and really put yourself through there. People are going to get a lot more. They're going to connect with you better.
Yeah, who am I? I mean, frankly, that's one of the reasons why I'm glad that you're doing the interview from your parents' house with the phone ringing, because if you tried to pretend you weren't there, it would become tough. You'd have to go to find another room. You'd have to disconnect the phone. You'd have to hide any sign that you're not in a professional studio. Like the chair would be a problem. And like all that becomes baggage that you don't need, that slows you down, that keeps you from producing and distracts you from what's most important, which is the content and the ideas.
Oh, the chair's not even that bad. To be fair, the only place in our house that's quiet is actually my parents' room. So they're locked out of their room, and you're sitting on their bed right now.
You're in your parents' room right now.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I mean, not good that you're in your parents' room necessarily. Good that you're recording from where you are. I like it.
I'm a commuting student right now. I'm graduating at the end of this semester, and then we'll see where we're at. I would like to get abroad, head down to Southeast Asia a bit. And that's kind of one of the next things I wanted to talk to you about. How did your going abroad and living in Argentina affect you and your business?
It allowed me to get away from my distractions and out of my rut. In Santa Monica, where I happened to live at the time, there were all kinds of things that were distracting me, like I had a car that needed to have its registration updated. I had to go see the dentist because you have to go see the dentist, right? So I went twice a year to go see the dentist, which is right down the street. My friends were out there, and how do you say to your friends, I can't go out because I want to work again? So I would say yes, and that would become another distraction. I went to Argentina. There were no distractions. I could sit and work all day long. There was no one who knew me. People spoke Spanish in a way that I didn't even understand fully because they pronounced their Y's kind of weird. Actually, I like the way they pronounce their Y. I wish all Spanish language people would pronounce it that way.
Do you speak Spanish?
Enough to get by, but not really.
Okay.
And so it allowed me to focus. I would go in there and I would focus all day long on finding interviews, on improving my interview style, on finding ways to make my interviews more relevant, on finding my audience, on experimenting by saying different things in my interviews and seeing where my voice is, where do I stand, where are the limits that I want to push. And that allowed me to get better and better.
So you kind of put yourself basically into a box where you were alone, you could be completely productive. How did being abroad and being in all these new places, meeting these new people affect your creativity?
I got to just be awakened all the time. Every little thing would wake me up, because I'd have to take notice of it. Like my wife and I would go out for ice cream the way we did just a week or so ago here. After the 1,000th interview, actually, we went to celebrate with her getting ice cream. And it was just a standard experience that you and I have had forever. You wait in line with a ticket or you just wait in line without a ticket. They give you a couple of samples. They give you a cone with ice cream and you walk away. That's the experience. I went to Argentina and first of all, you have to learn how to ask for things like, can I have a taste of that? Puedo probar. And then you would say what you want. Chocolate is not chocolate, it's chocolate. Vanilla is not vanilla, it's vanilla. So you'd have to intellectually be stimulated to try to come up with it. And then they put it in this box, the ice cream that you want if you're going to take it home. And then they wrap it up like a birthday present. I'm not kidding, really. Wrap it up like a birthday present. I think with what's that called? Not streamers, but with a bow on top. That's a whole experience that you have to understand, that you have to just wake up and be aware of. And so I could be in that box like you described it, but I wasn't becoming boring or bored or dull-minded. I was in my box during the day, but then when I went out at night, dinner wouldn't start till 10 o'clock over there. So I would have this whole experience around dinner at 10 o'clock after I work.
So you really got to get out there and kind of get outside of some of the cultural norms you were used to. When did you start in terms of how far into Mixergy were you at this point?
I don't know, maybe a couple of years, but I wasn't really doing it enough. I wasn't doing the interviews as often as I'd like. One of the things I committed to doing when I got to Argentina was doing an interview a day. Every single business day, I would do another interview. And I actually, on my flight to Argentina, I was reading a book in preparation for my first interview, which was scheduled for when I landed. I didn't know what office I would have. I didn't know what part of town. I didn't know if the internet would be strong enough or if there'd be too much latency for me to do video interviews. But I did my first interview when I got there. It was wonderful. And the cool thing about that is the person who I interviewed, I can't think of his name right now, happened to have lived in Argentina for a while. And so he emailed me back some recommendations for where to eat, where to find the best steak, what kind of wine to have. And so it started me off properly.
I hear in Argentina the meat's a lot cheaper. Did you really enjoy being able to just get out there and get some of the best,
Yes.
the best grilled food?
Yes. So the first day, Olivia is such an experimenter that we couldn't just settle in after this long flight that took us about 20 hours. She couldn't just settle into the apartment. We had to go and explore, and it was raining, and we moved our cat and our dog in there. So she went for an exploration to go get cat litter for her cat, which we moved to Argentina with us. Great. That wasn't enough either. She had to go out at night. And the Yankees were playing the Phillies, I think, at the time. And so she took us to a bar, an American bar, where we can go and watch the Yankees versus the Phillies. But before or after that, we went to have a steak, my first steak in Argentina. And after a couple of bites, I said, this is what everyone's excited about, this thing? Because it tasted so bland. They put no sauce on it, no nothing. And then afterwards, I thought, this is the best steak I ever had. It's so authentic. It somehow just tastes better. And once I got past the fact that they don't cover it in crap, it was really good. And yes, it was inexpensive. Not super cheap, but we're talking about under $10. You'd have a really great steak. One that was so well made that they would make a show in some restaurants of taking 2 spoons. If you ordered a big steak to share with 2 people, they would bring 2 spoons and they would use one to hold down one side of the steak and the side of the other to cut it in half. And then they would, with one hand clip it and put one on your side, one on your plate, and the other piece on your friend's plate. It was just fantastic. And it was really good.
That's unreal. So one of the things that I really wanted to get into with you was to get a little bit more into your story. I've listened to a sizable number of your interviews. I got to say, I'm on the free plan of, an interview came out, I'm going to listen to this. But I'm not at the point where I'm going Mixergy Premium, hopefully in the future. But I know you started out with Bradford and Reed, where you were working with your brother. Can you talk about that a little bit?
What do you pay for online? When you look at the things that you pay for that, actually anything, I was going to say that aren't software, what comes to mind?
I don't buy too much online unless it's going to be like a physical product. Like, I like to work out and go to the gym. I'll buy some protein powder, but other than that, I have an e-commerce store, so technically I'm buying things and selling things online, but I don't buy too much online.
Like, do you have an analytics package for it? No.
Right now, it's completely bootstrapped.
And you didn't even pay for the software to run the store. You're probably running.
Technically, it is BigCommerce, so I'm doing $25 a month, and then right now with this site, I'm paying for the hosting through Bluehost, and also to get the VibeSyn media hosting. Which, speaking of which, if you only get 250 megabytes, this is something else I wanted to ask you about related to Mixergy and your podcasting. You only get 250 megabyte uploads per month. What do you do in terms of hosting for your files?
VibeSyn, I never heard of that.
Yeah, I found it through Pat Flynn. That was what he recommended. I couldn't find too many others.
What do they do?
Oh, Libsyn, not VibeSyn.
Libsyn for the podcast. Yes, okay, I get it. All right. So, there's a lot in there. Where do you want me to hit first? About the limit of audio video?
Yeah, sure. What is your procedure for Mixergy?
I don't use Libsyn. I put my stuff up on Amazon S3. I feel it gives me a little bit more control. I like Libsyn a lot. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them or that you made a bad decision. I put my stuff on Amazon S3. Every month they reduce the prices. It feels like every month they reduce the prices. And I get all kinds of flexibility with it. I'm not recommending it necessarily for you. I think whatever works for you should stick with. But I'm telling you, that's why it's not an issue for me. There was a time it was an issue where I suddenly was paying $750 a month for hosting because I have 1,000 interviews and I have a big audience of people. And then Amazon, I was just starting to look at my audience to see if someone could help me reduce the price somehow. And there were people who were offering to host my stuff for free just so they could say that they host Mixergy stuff. And I was about to take an offer from someone, and then Amazon lowered the price. And then they lowered it again. They lowered it again. It's becoming so insignificant that I just don't even pay attention to it anymore.
That really seems to be the only thing that Amazon does, is lower their prices, lower the price to buy something online, lower the price to host. What do you think about, completely off topic, but what do you think about Amazon's approach to e-commerce and how it's affecting business owners that you've spoken with?
I think they actually found what they're about, and they're just working it. I really like the book, The Everything Store. Even though Jeff Bezos doesn't seem to like it, his wife doesn't like it, I can see why they wouldn't like it. But the part that I dig about that book that's so enlightening is to see that they found their flywheel. They know what they're about. They are about the lowest prices, right? That's one of several things, but they stand for lower prices, and they keep looking for ways to reduce the price. Once you know what you're about, life is so much easier. You know what you need to do.
What would you say to the fact that they're not actually making money right now? They're losing just because they keep investing in the future. They could hit that turning point where Amazon completely collapses.
I don't know that they would. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you and I ran a business that was making $1 million in profit, right? Yay, we did it. We're making $1 million in profit. April 15th comes around, we have to pay, let's just make it really simple. How much? 50% away, right? So we have to pay $500,000 to the government, and now we're at $500,000, right? Imagine if instead we said, why don't we take this $1 million and invest it in a business that will be worth $1 million, right? So we haven't changed anything. Now we have a business that's worth $1 million. How much do we have to pay in taxes? 0, right?
Okay. I never thought about it like that, but you're right. That is a little bit smarter on their part, investing in the future.
The question is, can we do it? Can we then take this $1 million in profit and invest it in a business that has no profit, no revenue necessarily, but has $1 million in asset value? I could see possibilities for how to do that. If you buy, let's take a really overly simplistic idea that won't work, but it'll illustrate the point. We say we have this $1 million in profit. We cannot really pay any part of this to the government or else we're suckers. What do? What if we bought $1 million in ads and we funnel those ads to a landing page where people gave us their email address, and we did a nurturing campaign so they got to know us and they became, small buyers of us. Nothing significant yet, but we can tell based on our experience that they will buy from us, or that we can run ads to them. Now we have a list that we know what its worth is because it's going to be the present value of all the future profit that we'll make off of them. So we have something that's an asset that's worth money. I'm overly simplifying it, but if you ask me, what do I think of a business that's not making money? Generically, I will tell you that's awful. Every business should make money. But if we can get into the nuance of why they're not making money and understand whether it's because they're plowing it into real asset growth that's worth something, or just throwing the money out the window essentially with bad expenses, then we now have a discussion. One is good and the other is bad. I don't necessarily write off Amazon because they don't make a profit, or any other business because of that.
Okay, that's a great point. And I think it's kind of funny that you immediately went to email marketing and opt-ins in terms of what a business could be. Could you talk a little bit more about what your first business was when you were working with your brother, creating essentially an email opt-in site for newsletters?
We were trying to create email newsletters, and we figured we'd pay 10 cents per person who came in to join the list. And we'd make money through advertising by running ads at maybe, I imagined, something like half a penny per day is what we'd earn from advertising to that list. People were joining, but not so much. And then we needed to find a new way to get people to join the mailing list. One of the ideas that we had was, why don't we create some tell a friend form where someone uses the form to tell a friend about whatever website or whatever they like. And in the process, we can put a checkbox that says, yes, I also want to join the mailing list. And if they join the mailing list, then we'd get them on our list and we can run ads to them.
So you basically tried to employ viral marketing to get people to essentially sucker their friends in.
It's very early viral marketing. I wouldn't call it sucker, but yes.
And I know you grew that up to the point, within a year, you guys were at 1K in profit per day, and you grew that to 38 million in revenue over the course of a year, correct?
I think so. I think it was a couple of different businesses, but yes. It was essentially there.
Okay. Once you'd grown this business up to really prolific sizes in terms of most of the entrepreneurs that are going to be listening to my show. So you said, okay, I've got this money. Do you remember what your exit is? Are you willing to discuss that when you sold?
I don't say it, but frankly, it wasn't a huge exit. Our our exit wasn't great. Our revenue was good. And what I was living off of afterwards was not the exit money. It was the profits from the business.
And then with that, I know from research, you said that you wanted to take a little time off. You had been pretty much busting your ass with your brother building this business. What did you do? What does Andrew Warner do to take time off?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what I did. What I would sometimes love to do now. I got a place right by the beach. I wanted to look out at the beach in Venice Beach. So I paid the person who had that apartment. I went to the landlord and I said, I want that apartment, the one that looks outside on the beach, so that I could have a really good view here, and I want to be in the heart of the city. And he said, I can't. Someone else has that, and I can't rent it to you. I said, here's $1,000. Go talk to them and give it to them and give me their place. And he went and he talked to them and he gave me their place. And it wasn't until later on that I realized he might have just pocketed the $1,000 himself and told them, sorry guys, you can't live here. I don't know. He seemed like a good person, so I doubt that he did it. And they seemed happy with the move, but they moved. And I got to be there. I would get up every morning and go and have a cup of coffee and a bagel and just kill time reading the paper or reading online. And then I wasn't really sure what to do with myself. Eventually, I discovered cycling, which took up a lot of my time. And so I'd go on my bike for a good 5, 7, sometimes even as long as 10 hours and ride up the Pacific Coast Highway. And then when I'd be done, I'd go out. And that was a full day. Go out every night, ride my bike every day. I found this guy who had all these old Howard Stern shows, really from back when Howard Stern was a no one. And I just started listening to them almost in chronological order, starting with the NBC days, actually. But one of the first ones I really remember being drawn to was Howard Stern getting on FM radio in the morning on WXRK for the first time. And he talks about what he stands for. He says, I want people to see the behind the scenes stuff. He shows you what he's going to be about. He called up the reporter. Back then, people were reporting about radio. So he called up the reporter who reported about him and said, how did you misspell my name? My name is Howard. And he always did this voice in the beginning. My name is Howard Stern. Why would you call me this? Why would you type in Howard Sternowitz or whatever? And I thought, this is so cool. This is how he started. He said, I'm important enough that you should know my name. And I'm grateful that you're writing about me, but I want more. And I'm going to show you what's happening behind the scenes as I build myself up. And if you ever get a chance to get that MP3, get it and listen to it, it's very good.
I think that might have been the most important story I've ever heard about you. And it's not even going to be what you think it is. It's something deeper I want to go into. I want to go back to when you're at Venice Beach looking for an apartment. One of the real problems I see with people in terms of getting their goals is just saying, I want that. I'm going to go take that. You wanted that apartment. You said, here's $1,000. You do what it takes to get what you need. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs per se, but a lot of people lack. That really separates entrepreneurs from other people. They know what they want and they're willing to ask for it. Where did you learn that you really needed to go after what you wanted, ask for what you wanted, rather than just hoping it would happen?
I think just reading biographies of successful people and seeing how they do it. One of the best biographies I read was about Larry Ellison, but I can't remember it. I can't remember which one it was in. So I read so many. But one of my favorite stories is two of his guys in his new company, Oracle, are arguing about how to get the internet cables to wire from one room to the other. And they're negotiating and arguing with each other and trying to figure it out. And Larry walks into the room, he sees the argument, and he takes a hammer and he bangs a hole in the wall and he goes, now we're good. Let's go for it. And what I like about that is that he just found a quick way to make it happen. He didn't care about the details that weren't that important to them right now. It's not like someone was going to walk around this new office of this new startup and say, I can't believe there's a hole in the wall. But they would say, I can't believe you guys killed an important day in your life arguing over where to get the cable to work. And I see enough stories like that and I get inspired.
So basically you just took the concept of get it done, screw what it looks like, and work with that.
Yeah, those are all the lessons that I took from that.
So you referenced that you like to read entrepreneur stories and other motivational people. Who are some of the people that motivated you when you were growing up and going through college, NYU?
I hate to say it, but it's a lot of people whose names I don't remember anymore because I used to go and read these obscure magazines that would have nothing but interesting biographies or behind the scenes looks at people. So I've talked about this a few times, but I can't talk about it enough. It was so good. There was a magazine that Steve Forbes came out with called Audacity Magazine. It was nothing but biographies of really successful people from decades before we were born. And those people were openly hungry for success. They were openly hungry for domination and monopoly, you know? So you get to actually see the raw, unhidden ways that they built their businesses. And that's interesting because we're not getting the cover story of I just want to be a humanitarian and that's why I'm building this porn company, you know? You're getting to see them be themselves. And I like that openness. And I also like how they went long form, super long form, page after page after page. Most people, I was going to say would be bored by it. Most people weren't bored by it. That magazine was a flop, but it was great. I actually found that the company had older issues of it. I called them up and I said, I would like to buy every issue ever made of this magazine. And I think the first thing they said was, what is Audacity? And then once they understood it, they sold it to me at like cover price, $3 a copy or something. And so it was people that I can't even remember who were in there. People who are in the old Forbes magazine, not today. Today, Forbes magazine is about link baiting articles written by people who are going to promote themselves in the magazine. Back then, it wasn't that. I liked it. That's what helped.
Would you say that in the past, people were more blunt, or just the fact that when you're looking back at something with perspective, you're able to really say what it is because no one's feelings are going to get hurt. You can be completely raw.
Yes, you're right. You're right. When I interview people whose businesses are still ongoing, I don't get as much openness as that when I interview someone whose business is closed, sold, and behind them. When you're ongoing, you can't pretend that things are going badly. You have to pretend everything's good. When you're looking back, you can almost laugh at your failures and insecurities and challenges. Hey, you know what? Hang on one sec, Matt. I'm in the office actually today, and people didn't expect that I was going to do an interview. Let me just shut the door so that not interrupt.
Not a problem.
Go on, though. I'll be right here.
Okay.
Still hearing you and I'm still right behind. So
one of the things I wanted to get into was Mixergy. You've grown it to very sizable numbers. How many subscribers do you have currently, and kind of how has the growth of that gone for you?
I don't really know how many subscribers I have. I think the growth is going okay. It's steady. I am not happy with the way that I am measuring my success on the site. I think I need to find a better way to do it. In fact, I need some method of measuring success. And I don't think it needs to be how many people come to my site or how many people on my mailing list. I think I need to get better at. So here's what I've been thinking. I think that measuring how many interviews I did was a good start. It helped me take my mind off of everything else and just keep creating and improving naturally. I think now that I have 1,000 interviews, I think I need to start paying more attention to the successes that come from the audience as opposed to the number of interviews that I do. And I'm looking for ways to measure that. The other thing that I've done is I've created a side program called True Mind where I talk to entrepreneurs about their insecurities, the challenges that we have with the inner chatter. We use beads like this to help us increase our focus. I was just talking to an entrepreneur who used these beads to focus on getting funding. He got funding. I'm so proud to be associated with him, let alone to know that this helped him in his funding process. And with that, we're measuring success inside. Actually, maybe we shouldn't say even measuring. We're looking at success as in not how many people are in the program, but how many wins people have. And what I need to do is now put a number on that. I don't measure success by how many people have gone through the True Mind program or how many hits it has. I want to measure success by how many people say I have a win because of the True Mind program. That's the way we need to define success on True Mind. And I'd like to bring the same thought process to Mixergy and say, next time you interview me, I would like to be able to tell you we have 84 entrepreneurs who are created because of Mixergy, 150 entrepreneurs because of Mixergy.
I think it would be hard to get statistics like that just because some people might not be responsive. But what if you were to go about taking like a rate of return on people's investments? So people invest in Mixergy, either how much time they've invested or how much they invest in terms of the subscription, and then look at how their business changes. So maybe if you were to have a net revenue differential between people first starting out on Mixergy and then as they grew, all of a sudden their business exponentially grew. It might not be completely due to Mixergy, but you'd be able to say people that learn from Mixergy's interviews have taken their business up to totally freaking new heights.
I think that makes sense. I don't know if we could do that. I don't know if it's measurable directly. The thing is that when I think back on Forbes magazine, the old Forbes magazine, or Audacity, let's take that, Audacity magazine's influence on me, I don't know that I could directly connect it with any revenue. I know that it impacted me. I know it made me a better entrepreneur. I know it made me a better person. But I can't specifically say because I spent, I don't know what I must have spent, $50 buying every issue of that magazine, I made $500,000. I don't know, $50 back. It's very hard to tie that back.
And that's kind of the difference between direct response marketing versus marketing in the real world. Completely different, but it's kind of a metaphor for the same issues.
And and one of my challenges is that anyone can tell me how to measure success of an ad, for example, or of an interview or a course or a product that we create based on how many orders we got and how many customers or how many dollars we have. It's much harder to have a number that says how effective it is. And I'd like to get better at that.
That actually brings up a really good question I wanted to ask you. What is success for you? I know everyone has their typical definitions of success. It's, oh, you've got your nice house, you've got your supermodel life, and you're driving the Porsche. But really, that's total bullshit. That's not what success is. Success is how you measure compared to how you want to measure. What is success for you?
Success for me is a supermodel wife and a nice car. No, it really is this sense that I would like to have a lot of businesses being built and a lot of businesses being built on the interviews that we've done at Mixergy and a lot of businesses being built on the ideas that come out of those interviews and a lot of people becoming stronger, more productive, richer because of the work that I do, both at Mixergy and the True Mind process. I feel like True Mind in many ways is actually more powerful than Mixergy and more meaningful to me than Mixergy.
True Mind takes a lot of the aspects of Mixergy for entrepreneurs and makes it available to people, not just in entrepreneurship, people that just want to kind of reach a higher level in their own life.
It is more, you're right. It is mostly entrepreneurs, but it is applicable to people beyond. The challenges that we all have are that we'll listen to someone do an interview the way that I just did right now, where I talk to you about how I wanted an apartment that overlooked the beach, and I wanted it to not be a house because I needed it to be in Venice Beach where I felt all the action was, and it was for me at that point. And I wanted to look at the water. And someone else could be in the exact same situation and say, you know what, I have enough money that I could actually talk to the landlord and say, can I give you $100 in order to get the better room? And then they'll hesitate. Or they'll say it, but they'll say it in such a wishy-washy way that no one will take them seriously. They'll feel and look like losers, and so it won't work out. And so the idea isn't enough. It's the confidence with which you express it. It's the confidence that you have to actually put it out there and go, screw that, I'm going to do it. That's the part that's an obstacle that we don't talk enough about as entrepreneurs. I had that issue for my life, and I still do to this day. Others do too. We're working to get over it, and we're working to minimize that inner doubt's power over us and to awaken our inner confidence, the part that allows us to come up with these great ideas, that allows us to even have stupid ideas that people suddenly want to pay attention to, that allows us to really build companies based on what we're learning.
What's your biggest inner doubt?
I don't know that I can measure it. I can give you a handful of them. I can tell you it would be, can I express myself articulately on camera without sometimes going through these meandering parts of my conversation? So it makes me feel like maybe I'm not meant to be on camera. There's some people who are just such natural talkers, and maybe I'm not one of them. So that's an insecurity. But it also is the smaller things. I will sometimes not respond to an email for days. Not because I don't know what to say, but because I feel like, ooh, what if I don't know what to say? What if I have to respond to him and it's going to be too hard? Or, all these things. And so I don't recognize even that this inner chatter is going on in my head saying, why you don't know how to respond to him. It's been too late since you responded. You shouldn't respond now. You don't know what to say that's going to really make him be okay with you saying no. That's the inner chatter that goes in my head. I often don't even recognize it. And it doesn't express itself in any way other than procrastination. So I'll open up another tab and look at Hacker News again and see, how did my Twitter post from 2 days ago do? How many clicks did I get? That is in many ways more damaging than me thinking maybe I'm not meant to be on camera, because me thinking I can't be on camera, I could overcome. We have a scheduled interview. I could be here. And I could deal with it because I will analyze how I did in this interview and think about how I could do better at it. But because I know that this is an insecurity, I know that it's an issue, I can work on myself with it. I can remind myself, hey, I've done 1,000 interviews. I'm okay. I can remind myself that other people started out really dopily, and I've heard bad interviews that people who are successful today do. Like Charlie Rose used to meander with his questions. And now he's focused. And so I can do something about it. It's the ones that I'm not aware of that are a problem.
So would you say that, so you're referencing issues that other great people have. You're kind of comparing yourself to them. And one of the real lessons I learned was the best way to look at winning, unless you're playing in sports, there's not two teams. Everyone is their own team. And you're not really competing against others. You're competing against yourself. So how do you focus on competing against yourself to make yourself better?
By thinking about where I'd like to be, by thinking about how I compare to where I was before. I don't compete with other people. I get inspired by them. When I'm reading all these other people who are successful, I don't do it because I see them as their separate team that are going up against me. I just get inspired by them. The way that if you were a football player, you might watch a game or two or more and feel like, oh, I can't believe that guy did that. All right, there's something I could take from that. Or watch someone else's training tape and learn from that.
So it's more of a, damn, that's awesome kind of deal.
Yeah, and sometimes, so I run. I love running. I can't bring myself to read a book about how to run. My wife read a book called Chi Running, which taught her how to have better form, and it improved her running. I can't bring myself to read those books. And if I do, my mind just doesn't get entertained. It doesn't remember enough of it. It's boring, so I don't crave it. But what I can do is I love reading stories of people who run the way that I do. I like to do extreme distance amateur running, long distance amateur running. If I read a story of someone who ran the length of the British Island, I feel really excited about that. And I pick up a couple of tips. I was starting to read stories of people who were doing extreme runs where they would do it over 2 or 3 days. And I suddenly picked up on, well, they're not eating these bars that we buy at Sports Basement, which are terrific and fine, but they sometimes feel too sweet and they don't feel like they're nourishing enough. These guys who do the longer runs actually will carry with them tortillas full of food, which, right, you give it that look, but I tried it. It's so much better. It's more nourishing. It's healthier in many ways than the bars, and it fills me up better. And so I read their stories. I pick up on a couple of tips. I'm good.
How do you manage? I know you've done several marathons, and you said you're planning on some longer stuff as well. How do you manage to keep up with the business when you're going on runs that are a couple hours long? And what do you listen to, or what's in your head while you're running?
When I can take time off of Mixergy because I record my interviews over a couple of days and then we post them over a few weeks. And so I have enough time to take off. I have a team of people who help me out. The business is structured enough that we all know what we do to get things going. And then what I do is I take a run every morning, as many mornings as I can. And on Sundays, I like to go for really long runs. So today I ran 6 miles because that's how long the run is to the office. And this past Sunday, I ran 16 miles, I think. And I think it fires me up for the day to run in the morning. And it gives me my own space in the morning before you come in and you ask me your questions. And the emailers come in and they ask me all their issues. And I have to do everyone else's to do. No, when I run, it's just me and my time. And to answer your question about what I listen to various podcasts. This morning, it happened to be the Freakonomics podcast, which was actually pretty interesting. I mean, pretty interesting to listen to on a run. It's very hard to find stuff that you both are captivated by and can keep you going when you're running. And so I did that. And then I listen to music sometimes on a run. And this morning I was a little bit late, and so I had to really get going fast. I put on some music, some fast heavy metal music actually, and I just ran like a bat out of hell. It felt so good. But I thought, but in the past I've listened to Amanda Palmer. When she was in the news, I started listening to her obsessively on my runs, and I was listening to Rodriguez when I first heard about him. He's this guy who There was a documentary about him called Sugar Man. People in South Africa listened to him back, I guess, in the 70s and 80s. Never heard of the guy, but there they loved him. So I started listening to that. And what goes on in my head is sometimes just what I'm excited about for the world, for my world. What fires me up about my day? What fires me up about this week? So today what fired me up about coming in here was I want to automate some of the onboarding that we have for people who come into Mixergy. And so I said, no matter what, today we're going to launch that. We're going to just put it out there. Even if it's a ghetto crappy version, we're going to get it going. And that fired me up. And sure enough, we got it going. And it is a very ghetto version. Let me see how many people have gone through it. I've been getting emails as they go through it. 1, 2, 3, I'd say about 24 people. Let me see, can I select it? I have 13 people here, but I've deleted some from my inbox. That fired me up. And when I have nowhere else to go, nothing else to do to get myself off of that thought, I can really dive into it and think, what can I do? If I'm really determined to get this up and running, what can I do? What can I give up to make sure it launches right now? How do I work around some of the obstacles that I have? And then we make it happen.
You just need to get that minimum viable product out there. We had a hackathon at Georgia Tech, and we called it F it, ship it. Essentially, build it and get it out there.
Make sure to mark this as an explicit podcast.
Oh, yeah. Good call. What would you say? How big is the Mixergy team right now? I know you said, I'm guessing you're just doing the interviews at this point. You're not doing the editing or anything else on that end.
So I'd say about 9 people. We have a process for finding guests, and that includes both handling inbound interview requests where people say, please interview me or interview my friend. And it also includes going out and using some criteria to find potential guests. So all of that gets into a funnel where the top is just put in anyone who you think would be a good guest in there. Then we have someone else look at all those suggestions, both from outside and from inside, and decide who should be moved into the interview process. And so she moves them into the interview process. And another person says, all right, let's go and send an interview request to them, actually a pre-interview request. And then I have the pre-interviewer who does the pre-interview, and the person who does a little bit of research for me. And then, as you say, after I'm done with the recording of the interviews, someone else edits it. It sounds like it's a big team that everything is for some reason just made bureaucratic, but it's some of the same people doing the same thing. And I like to have someone suggest a guest and someone else say yes or no, because when you suggest a guest into the list, you're much more passionate about it, much more connected to them. I want someone who's a little disconnected to say, you know what, that's not really a good fit.
Now, my next question is a little bit more personal. I've heard you and other people say this. The best questions to ask someone are the ones you really want to know. What would you recommend for me as a podcaster in terms of trying to grow my podcast up and build the audience?
Okay, so I'm looking at your site here, and it's business and bootstrapping, and you've already started to focus in a little bit more narrowly than Mixergy, which I think is a good idea. Mixergy was one of the first to do these kinds of interviews, and I focused on entrepreneurs and how they built their companies. So many people afterwards decided that they would do this exact same thing, entrepreneur stories. I think at some point we're done with that. It's redundant to just keep doing entrepreneur stories. It's helpful, but it's so much more helpful to be more focused, to say, I am going to be, my friend Steve Young is doing nothing but mobile app interviews with mobile app makers. Think about that. You and I may not care about it and may not be passionate about it, but the people who are in the app business love it, love his stuff. And now because when you're starting to build an app, you feel alone. You never saw anyone else build an app. The rest of the world is caring about web pages and brick and mortar stores, and you care about an app. And to hear stories of app makers is fantastic. If I were to do it again, I would have done an app. I mean, if I were to do it today, actually, I would just pick a topic that I'm much more interested in and make it more focused on that. So if I was interested in Bitcoins, I would do a Bitcoin podcast. Boom. Everyone else is excited about it. I'm going to be the guy to go to for the Bitcoin podcast. If I were going to do an interview series today again and start from scratch, it wouldn't be entrepreneurship. It would be one area of it. Maybe it would be the psychology of entrepreneurs. So only people who care about their own inner game would come. Or maybe it would be about just landing pages, nothing but landing pages. People who create landing pages for a living would come on, be interviewed about the things that they do to make their landing pages more successful. Or copywriting. I don't know that anyone's doing copywriting podcasts, but think about that. Copywriters are the best wordsmiths out there. I would do an interview site just on copywriting. And I would bring in copywriters. I would ask them about how they came up with their copy, what their conversions were. And it's exciting to see that if you just change some words on a page, boom, more sales come in. So my suggestion to you is try to focus in more and more tightly.
Okay. What about in terms of actual format, long format, short? Right now I'm planning on posting 2 interviews a week, Monday, Friday, help people start the shitty Mondays off and then have the Fridays something to look forward to.
I like long form, partially because I have a long commute into work. I have a run that takes me an hour. One of the reasons I don't like the Freakonomics podcast is because it's only 20 minutes, and when it's done, I have to stop my run and go find another show to listen to, and that's a drag. And I know people in their cars feel the same thing. Leo Laporte has always said, the perfect length for a podcast for everyone is their commute. So if their commute is 20 minutes is perfect. If it's an hour, it's an hour. So I personally like it. But the challenge with long form is that it doesn't spread as fast. Just think about it. If I like this interview that you did with me and I start to tell people that you interviewed me, I'm basically telling them that they have to commit an hour to listening. That's a challenge.
So another one of the questions that I had for you, in terms of the podcast that you listen to, I know you said you listen to Freakonomics. What do you do when you're listening to podcasts? I know if you're taking some of the best athletes in the world, some of the best musical composers, when they get around other people that are great, a lot of times they'll critique the other person's performance just because that's what they're used to.
Yes. And it drives me crazy. That's why I can't listen to business podcasts when I run. I do. I go really nuts when someone says in an interview something like, so what do you do? Or what is this company that you're on? I go, now I'm about to be treated to a long, just meandering answer that all this host needed to do is just describe what the guest did in a sentence or two and let me move on. Instead, he doesn't know how to do it, and so he's asking the guest to do it. I hate that. I hate when people say, and here's another exciting thing. It's not exciting. You just want me to feel excited, and so you're being a little too eager for it. So here's what I'm excited about. You're not really excited about it. Find what you're really excited about and say it. And if you're not excited about it, be open about that too. So little things like that drive me crazy. I can't listen to them on my run. I will listen instead to This American Life, for example, which doesn't make my runs go any faster. You go very slow when you listen to stories like that.
Especially with the speed of their voice. That's actually how I found out initially about podcasting. I was working over in Germany at an engineering internship with Airbus, and I couldn't really stand it. At this point, I was like, I know I want to be an entrepreneur. I hate coming into work and doing this. And I was listening to old school books on tape like Sherlock Holmes. One of my friends shows me This American Life and my world changes. I find that, and from that I quickly find a bunch of business entrepreneurship podcasts and then all that from there.
I do like and really admire how NPR got into podcasting quickly when people thought you shouldn't be giving your stuff away, when maybe they thought this whole podcasting thing wasn't going to work. NPR got into it. And they brought quality to podcasting in the early days when there wasn't a lot of quality, when it was just a bunch of junk.
So last question for you. I know that you're probably got to go pretty soon.
You know what? I'm actually sweating through my shirt just sitting here under the lights. I'm sweating I'm sweating everywhere. I can't, for some reason, just sit still for too long. For some reason, I don't think it's just the lights. I think it's just my internal body just needs to keep moving. And if it's sitting in its place, there must be like some parts of my inside that are moving anyway and getting all sweaty. I hate it.
If you want to make this crazy, you could do some push-ups while you're answering the interview or some kind of thing to make it just way out there.
If I did my interviews all while running with people.
That would certainly be original, right? There's your niche.
I had a buddy, John Bishke. He would do meetings with me running. So we both lived in Santa Monica next door to each other. If we wanted to have a conversation, he'd say, come out for a run with me. And so we'd go for a run, and he and I would talk the whole run. I've never seen it before. I'm laughing because I can't believe he can run like that, and I can't believe he can be that efficient, but that guy's good.
It's so hard to run and talk, though, really. I've heard different strategies, and I guess this wouldn't be a bad question for you. What are some of the strategies you have outside of the boring, let's go get coffee, or how about a drink, to really interact with people?
I always say no to coffee. Coffee means an interruption to the middle of my day. I'm going to have to go out of the office for how long is it going to take me? 10 minutes to go find someone? So we go to the coffee shop. It takes me 10 minutes. We spend some time with the line trying to get the coffee. Then we have a conversation, and then I have to walk back home or walk back to the office. Another 10 minutes wasted. I'd much rather say, instead of this boring ass coffee that everyone does, I do drinks here at the office. Today, here, let me show you what we're going to do today. Today, I've invited people in. Let me bring my camera up so I can see it. Instead of scotch, we're going to do vermouth from Sutton Cellars. This is by a local guy here named Carl Sutton, who creates wine, but he also makes this vermouth that is just so good on its own that's my plan. We're going to pour some vermouth for a couple of entrepreneurs and friends who come in, and we're going to have real conversations. We always get really deeply in depth. We talk about everything except for the usual business stuff. Last week was circumcision. One guy apparently had an issue with his uncircumcision issue. Before that, we talked about being gay and understanding that you're gay. And I'm not gay, but one of the people who came and sat around the table happened to have this topic come up, and that's where we went. Before that, it's what happens when our lives get to a place where we're not sure we're ever going to make the things we wanted to have happen. And it's not like it's a formal conversation where we have a topic, but I just pour some drinks, we talk, and we see what feels natural. We don't get drunk. Thankfully, I can't deal with that. We just have a real conversation. I say I can't deal with it, and I'll tell you why. Some entrepreneurs have very expensive tastes. So I had a couple of entrepreneurs come in here, and they started drinking whiskey, and they could hold their own with their whiskey. They could really drink a lot. And then they get hungry. And so they won't go over to a sandwich shop and have a sandwich. They take me to this really nice fancy restaurant, and we order $50 meals that I can't taste because my mouth tastes like alcohol. Big waste of time. So now what I do is I set my alarm here. I should do it right now. Set an alarm for 8 p.m. Boom. Now the alarm's going to go off at 8 p.m. I will be there from 6 to 8 right here serving drinks, having conversation. But before we get to the point of being too buzzed, I'm going to get myself right back home and go have dinner with my wife.
That sounds pretty awesome. What's your typical day like? What kind of hours is Superman working?
Get in around 10 o'clock in the morning, and I leave around 7. I start my day if I'm happy with a run, if I'm a little less happy with a bike ride, which is very agitating, and if I completely screwed up, then I end up, or don't have time, then I end up taking BART in, which stinks. Then I sit in here, I will try to do one thing that's important, and then I take on the world's problems, it feels like.
What do you do when you're not interviewing? I know you're doing a ton of interviews, but you also have a lot of other time as well.
One of my favorite things to do is to talk to the True Mind community and to see where they are. Like if someone has gone through the True Mind program and they have a win, like they suddenly got funded or they suddenly were able even to present to investors, that's a win. I get really excited about it. If they have a challenge, I get really excited about it. If they're just making progress, I have an email right here from someone who's making progress. I don't know if Brandy's even in the True Mind program, but she keeps talking about True Mind with me, and I love talking to her about it. So that's one of my favorite things to do, to just see where people's challenges are and help them out. Another thing I've been enjoying is taking on new projects like how do we onboard people. The new onboarding is really ugly, like I said, but the main idea is this. I now have 1,000 interviews. Someone comes into my site, they shouldn't just be exposed to the latest interviews. Maybe the latest interviews stink. Maybe the latest interviews just don't speak to them and their issue. And so what I want to do is say, what is your issue? And then help them deal with that through these interviews. And we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I remember hearing you talking about that on one of your other shows. I would say don't solely have that, because that cuts off a lot of the great aspects of Mixergy is the fact that it's so diverse. It might not be what you're looking for, but generally when you find great things, it's not what you're looking for. It's what just kind of hits you in the face. I would say to have a mix of both.
I should quote you on that and say this is why we're doing it, because I think you nailed it. People do want to just find that perfect interview for the issue that they have, and now I'm going to help them do it. But I need to also say, look, stop. I know you have an issue where you need to figure out how to get more traffic to your site, but here's one that has nothing to do with that, but it'll still blow your mind. With Hal Elrod, for example, an old salesman. I don't know. He's the guy who used to sell knives. Listen to how he does it. So interesting. Not at all what you'd come to Mixergy for, but what you need. You're right.
Maybe if you threw like a tracking cookie thing in there, you could see what people have seen and not show them those and just have these are the mind-blown episodes that you haven't listened to yet, like a top list.
We have to get to that. And we're going to work our way towards that. By the way, look at how comfortable we are with each other right now, right? In the beginning, you were a little nervous. Now feels great.
Yeah, the stomach's a little better at this point. You've been a great guest to have on. I have one last question for you. I know I've taken a lot of your time. What would you say is the number one piece of advice that you would have for entrepreneurs that are not quite Mixergy caliber, but looking to get there? They're starting out and they want to make it big. What should they do, or what's something they should avoid to not waste their time?
I don't know that I have one perfect answer to that. So I had dinner at my house and someone thanked Heaton Shaw. And the reason they thanked Heaton Shaw is he helped them rethink their business. And I realized Heaton does that for people a lot. Other people who came to the dinner do that for each other a lot. And this is one of the reasons why people come to San Francisco, because they want to be exposed to that kind of help. And if I had to give anyone any advice, it would be to find a way to connect with people like that. And I see you're doing it here with your site. I think that this kind of format is a great way to do it. I think there are others, and it's almost like, were you ever a kid and a friend of yours said, if you had one wish, what would you wish for? And you said, 1,000,000 wishes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or the magic genie bottle you could rub for 3 more wishes, something like that.
Yeah, my first wish would be give me infinite wishes. And it's kind of like that if there's one thing I could give you, it's to connect with these people who will then answer your infinite wishes. Basically, by connecting with Heaton Shaw, you'll have some help with thinking through your product. By connecting with, or maybe Heaton might help you get more traffic. Maybe by connecting with Shane Mack, you'd have some help building out your product and know about design a little bit more. Maybe by talking with Neil Patel, who I spoke with just the other day, you'd have someone who could help you when you're trying to figure out how to monetize. It's like asking for a million wishes. And you're doing it through your interviews. Others have done it through organizing meetups. I think there are tons of ways to do it, but find a systematic way to connect with people who you admire so you can learn from them directly, like you just did with me, I hope.
Oh, yeah, it's been amazing. And the podcast interview is just perfect. It's like I find a way to steal your time in a way that I would never be able to do before, to really learn from you, learn from other people, and with that, just hopefully help other people learn.
Do you promise that you will leave the awkward entrance in this interview?
We're going to keep this completely unedited with the possibility of eliminating the F-bomb.
Oh, good. All right. I love that. Thank you for having me on here.
Thanks so much for being on here, Andrew. You've been an amazing help. If people want to connect with you and somehow haven't heard of you, where should they go?
Here's what I'm going to suggest to anyone who's listening. Before they come to San Francisco, not the day that they're here, but before they come out, if they're fans of my work, they should say, Andrew, I heard you with Matt, and I know that you sometimes have people into the office. Do you happen to have space? I'm not going to allow a crowd in here. This will always be small enough that we can have personal conversations, but it'd be nice to have one person from your audience come over to a Scotch night or vermouth.
So for anyone who's looking for a pretty good club partner, I think Andrew's volunteering. Ever in San Francisco, hit him up.
Yes. All right.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And if you guys want to reach out to him, Mixergy.com or Mixergy at Twitter. And of course, those will be in the show notes. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you so much, Andrew. It's been great. Can't wait to hear your next interview.
All right. Get out of there. Your parents need the bedroom back.
Oh, yeah. Have a great night. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show and hope you really enjoyed it. You can check out more great podcasts and blog posts at businessandbootstrapping.com. And I can't wait to talk to you guys soon. See ya.